For over 35 years, Todd Garner has overseen blockbuster films like Con Air, Anger Management, Triple X, 13 Going on 30, and the Mortal Kombat franchise.
Why are they letting you make these movies?
Join Todd as he shares tips and stories from the front lines of producing in Hollywood.
I'm Adam Sandler.
I'm Rebel Wilson.
This is Jeff Probst.
I'm Kaylee Cuoco.
I'm Eli Roth.
This is Marlon Wayans.
Hey, it's Ed Helms.
This is Shay Mitchell.
Hey everybody, this is Kevin James, and this is The Producer's Guide.
The Producer's Guide.
The Producer's Guide.
The Producer's Guide with Todd Garner.
Todd Garner.
Todd Garner.
Todd Garner.
What a combination.
Welcome to The Producer's Guide. I'm Todd Garner, and today we have another incredible guest. Joining us today is Sev Ohanian, one of the producers of the incredible movie Sinners. Sev is a talented screenwriter, producer, and one of the founders of Proximity Media, which he launched alongside Ryan and Coogler in 2018. Since then, Proximity has made huge waves in the industry, producing a diverse array of event-driven films, television shows, documentaries, and podcasts. Their debut feature, Judas and the Black Messiah, not only received 6 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, but also took home accolades for Best Supporting Actor and Best Original Song. They followed that success with Space Jam: A New Legacy for Warner Brothers and the blockbuster Creed III, which raked in over $275 million worldwide. Recently, Sev has been at the helm of exciting projects like Marvel's Ironheart, Eyes of Wakanda, and the Nat Geo documentary Hurricane Katrina: Race Against Time. And as was mentioned before, the genre-defying hit Sinners, which has grossed over $380 million globally. So today, get ready for a deep dive and insightful conversation as we talk about the world of film, original filmmaking, meeting your partners in college, and not getting arrested on your first day of filming. Enjoy. All right, I'm here with Sev Ohanian. Hello, Sev. How are you, brother?
Hey, what's going on, Todd? Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you for making time. You're in the middle of this whirlwind awards tour. Congratulations on this incredible accomplishment you guys had this year. So, very well deserved. Are you enjoying it? Are you taking it all in, or is it just like exhausting and and you don't even know what day it is anymore?
Oh man, I guess we always say we're literally running on gratitude.
Yeah.
There's not a single second of any of this that feels exhausting or negative in any way. This is the fact that our film that we put together with so much heart and love and all the things has gotten this kind of reaction. It's nothing but incredibly positive. So every second of it is amazing for all of us.
Walk me through where you started and how you made it to USC. I know you were at UCLA before USC. I know you made a movie called My Big Armenian Family and almost died and was arrested in the process. So why don't you walk me through kind of your early days and what got you inspired to become a filmmaker?
Thanks. Oh my God, I can't believe you know that. So I'm Armenian American. I immigrated to this country when I was very, very young. And growing up, I always loved the idea of being a filmmaker. It didn't feel quite possible, and a lot of immigrant families like to encourage their kids to become doctors or lawyers. It's rare for an immigrant parent to be like, go be a filmmaker. But it was my passion. And when I was in college at UC San Diego, I started making little YouTube videos about my parents, making fun of them out of love. Today, they would be TikTok videos, but this is in the 2000s. So I was shooting on my dad's mini DV camera. And it would be my guy friend just like pretending to be an Armenian dad and yelling at his son. I put the videos on YouTube just for my friends to watch. And to my surprise, they became huge viral hits in my community globally. So like Armenians in Germany were like reposting them, and people in Sydney were like making their own versions. I made a follow-up video, and then that blew up. And then I decided to write that movie, My Big Fat Armenian Family. It was a kind of semi-autobiographical film about an Armenian family where the 2 parents are old-fashioned and the 2 kids are like Americanized progressive teens, and the culture clash that happens over a weekend road trip to Palm Springs. And I shot the movie for $800 total, again on that same camera. I wrote it, I directed it, I shot it, I edited it. I had a makeup artist, but then she quit. So then I did the makeup too, and it was awful makeup. But I cast my friends. Ironically, similar to Sinners, my guy friend played both the husband and the wife, and it was a blast. But it's what you were asked about almost being killed. The first day of filming that movie, reminder, I had not gone to film school. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but We shot a 17-hour day because I didn't know any better. And it's like my cast was entirely minors, of course. Sorry about that. I hope the labor law statute was passed by now. But this is 2007. And we shot the climactic ending of the movie where this family has a huge emotional outburst fight in the middle of the night outside of this house. And we were shooting my friend's parents' house in Santa Clarita at 3 a.m. And we shot this huge scene, argument scene, whatever. We start wrapping up to go, to pack up and go home finally. And I see a sight of 3 police cruisers racing towards us with the lights on, but the sound was off, which made it so eerie. And I was like, oh, of course, they must think we're like a bunch of filmmakers. We don't have a permit. I was 20 years old at the time. Let me go talk to these officers. I'll explain. The cop cars screeched to a stop. And they did that thing from action movies where they open the car doors and point the gun at you from the crevice of the door in the car. I had never had a gun pulled on me. I was like, wait, what's going on? And it was like all the usual, get the F on the floor. What are you doing? And they like shoved us onto the pavement. My poor 16-year-old sister was like, like on the floor. They had guns pointed at us. I'm like, guys, it's a student film. It's a film. And they're like, and it occurred to me, the neighbors who were calling the cops on us, they didn't see the film crew because there wasn't a film crew. I was just me with my little camera. All they heard was a bunch of like people screaming in a foreign language, not too far removed from 9/11. And I realized,
God,
gosh, we're in Santa Clarita. Like this is such a safe. And it was bad. At one point, my male actor with the fake boobs pops out of the house. I was like, what's going on? And they damn near almost shot him. And it was it was like an hour of me explaining to the cops, it's a film and we're sorry. We won't do it again. And then, of course, we all came back the next day to keep shooting. But it's okay. No more guns.
Hey, that's what producing is. And by the way, you can't use this story as your best day on set story. So just so you know,
boy.
When I ask you that later. So you said you had a passion for filmmaking. What inspired that? What do you recall the first moment where you were thinking, man, I got to do this?
Yeah, I think I can. It was twofold, and it's really credit to my parents. My mom would always take me to the local public library to get books, and she really helped instill a lifelong passion of storytelling in me. But my dad, credit to him, he would take me to Blockbuster, and we would rent movies. And for whatever reason, it didn't make any financial sense, but we would always rent Back to the Future at my request. We really should have just bought it. But we would watch that movie over and over again, kind of as a comfort thing. And the more I watched it, and this is real credit to Zemeckis, like that movie really rewards rewatches. And I would just pick up on even more details that supported the story or the theme or enriched the characters' lives. And it made me realize that films are not just necessarily entertainment, although of course they are that, but they could really be an art form in and of themselves. And that combined with my love of storytelling, it just made it feel like it was inevitable. And like a lot of your guests, I was that kid in school who would want to take the lead on projects and find ways to it's funny, in high school I was not doing, basically in high school in my senior year I suffered from a really serious disease called senioritis. Have you heard of it? And I was doing very well in school, but in my AP environmental sciences class I ended up getting a D. This grade hadn't come out yet, but the teacher told me you're not doing well. And she was like, if you want, you can maybe write an essay and I can maybe give you a C. And of course I was like, what if I shoot a video instead? And I had never done it at the time, but I ended up shooting a documentary about our school called Trash, about this really bad trash problem we had at Herbert Hoover High School. And some of the trash problem may have been dramatized for my documentary, but I made a really entertaining video that kind of made fun of it and it was educational, all the things. And I turned it into her and she was like, no, you can't turn it in. You got to play it for the class, which I wasn't anticipating. We played it for the class. And to my shock, like these, 30 classmates of mine were laughing. They were clapping at different times. And I could tell that it had actually made an impact on them. And I ended up getting an A, which
wow.
happened. And I think that to me, along with the lifelong passion I had that feeling of like, making something that people respond to and relate to and laugh at, and it became a drug after that.
Well, yeah, once you get that dopamine hit of an audience responding to something that you've created, it's hard to put the genie back in the bottle. From there you go. Now, did you make your movie after UCLA?
It was actually UC San Diego.
Oh, sorry, UC San
But
Diego.
I made it around. I was shooting it while I was in school and editing it throughout the school, and I released it. It was called My Big Fairy Family. Released it in Glendale in LA. There's a large Armenian community in LA. I had a high school that I kind of rented. My parents helped stitch a movie screen together. I bought a projector from Best Buy and kept the receipt and returned it the next day. And we started screening the movie. And to my shock, Todd, thousands of Armenians from the LA area showed up.
Wow.
And they paid for tickets. And these are not people I knew. And I said this before, I anticipated people would laugh at it because it was really funny. I imagined they would clap at the end, but what I didn't imagine was that they would be clapping throughout. People would stand up and clap during moments of characters standing up for themselves, and people were crying, and just like you said, that dopamine hit. There was a financial upside to it, of course, but it was really just the fact that audiences responded to it that empowered me. So then I got into USC for graduate school, and at USC is where I really studied film.
You really understood, even at an early age, when you were releasing your movie, viral marketing. Because I hear there may be some warrants out for your arrest in Glendale high schools because you were cruising around, breaking into high schools, putting flyers in the lockers.
Oh my God. You have done your research. Yes. So for this movie, we didn't have a large P&A budget, obviously. It was my parents, basically. But there was enough buzz about the videos, the short videos on YouTube at the time. And this is 2008. And like I said, Glendale's got a lot of Armenians. I would sneak into various high schools overnight and slip little flyers in everyone's lockers. And that helped get the word out, and did the same at the local college. And I guess it worked. And I did a lot of little publicity stunts. The funny characters were kind of like Borat in the sense that they were caricatures of Armenian parents that we would kind of crash Armenian events and do little ruckuses, and it all kind of worked, man. And people really showed up, and yeah.
So you get into USC Film School. At that point, you wanted to be a screenwriter, or you actually were on the path to being a producer? Kind of how did your path mold as you were at USC? And that's also where you meet Ryan. So that clearly was a big deal too.
Big time, man. I mean, I think my goal when I got into USC Film School, I imagine 99% of people, was actually to be a director. I didn't understand the creative producer role as much at the time. Thankfully, USC taught me so well, but it was a very short period of time where I realized I actually really enjoyed producing so much more. And I also really enjoyed screenwriting. But producing was definitely the main gig. And USC introduced me to Ryan Coogler. It also introduced me to a young man named Anish Chaganty. Anish ended up becoming writing partners, and he ended up directing movies like Searching and stuff that I've made. And then even more importantly than Ryan and Anish, USC is where I met Natalie Kasabian, who's an amazing producer and is my amazing wife now as well. But yeah, I mean, USC is I mean, it's one of the best film schools, and more than the incredible teachers that you learn from and the projects you get to do, it's those relationships that you're able to form laterally, people who are just like you from other cities who have similar stories but their own identities. We all find each other, and if you really click, you get to start making projects together, movies together, companies together, and in mine and my wife's case, children together. So
right.
Much shout out to USC.
Well, it's such an important thing to realize that for young people, whether it's USC, a mailroom somewhere, a company, an improv group, those young relationships last a lifetime. And I always say to people, especially younger people, find the talent where you are. Yeah. Because there are probably people if you're in a creative community and you're all striving to create entertainment and media, there are people around you that are super talented, and you don't have to know Brian Lord. You don't have to know the bigwigs to get your career started. Just start where you are. And in fact, when you met Ryan and Ryan would come to your house, you showed him your feature movie. He hadn't made a feature yet. You had. So he was blown away by your ambition and your drive to make something like that. So, there's a lot of mutual respect going on in those communities too. And it's important to cultivate those relationships when you're younger. And plus, sometimes you can get married and have kids.
Exactly.
USC should just put this out as their recruitment thing. Like you're like, you get everything. You get your business partner, collaborators for life, and a wife and children. So
Yeah, literally. It's so true.
you're the best ad for USC. So at USC, you find this community. You're screenwriting. You're making your own movies. Ryan calls you up and says, "I've got this movie I want to make," because he makes Fruitvale, which becomes Fruitvale Station. And he calls you and says, hey, why don't you come produce this movie with me? Walk me through being a first-time producer, working with your friend who's a director on a big movie with a full crew of people who have done it a few times. What was your baptism by fire of being a producer?
Man, that was the most formative, of course, of anything in my career. And, Ryan and I were friends at USC. We hadn't worked together on any student films, but we had a lot of, mutual friends who we had worked with each other and a lot of professors who we shared. And he called me about helping out on Fruitvale, and I was genuinely so honored because here was an incredibly talented filmmaker from our school. Genuinely, his student films would almost become little events. I'm sure you're not surprised to hear that. And I was very familiar with the real life story of Oscar Grant when it had happened. And I remember seeing videos of that tragic shooting and feeling a lot of impotence and rage that like no one was talking about this, nothing was being done about it. So when Ryan sent me the script and I read it, I was of course blown away by the writing and the fact that it was about that young man I had seen. At the time, I was a little bit reluctant to jump onto the project because I was still in school and our schedule meant I would have had to drop out of school. So I was like, man, do I really want to do this? And one of my producing professors, and Ryan's as well, is an incredible filmmaker and producer named John Watson. He was like, you should do Ryan's movie because it's probably going to push. They always push. And he's done that. It's so true. And he was so right about that. But, drove up to the Bay, crashed on his and Zinzi Coogler's couch. Zinzi's Ryan's wife and producing partner. The three of us produce Sinners and have a company together. And yeah, man, I mean, it was, I was a co-producer on the movie. Our lead producers were Nina Yang Bon Jovi, who at the time was pregnant and wasn't able to be up in the Bay as often as I'm sure she would have wanted to, and Forrest Whitaker, who was, I'm sure, shooting something as an actor. So for a lot of it, it was kind of like us. It was myself. We had a couple of associate producers from SC as well. And yeah, we were way too young, in my opinion, looking back. And we had a very experienced crew, a lot of people who, were union, had done this many times. And there was more than a few times in those early days where one of our seasoned crew members would say to us gently with love, like, oh, this is not how a real producer does things, or things of that nature. For example, Fruitvale Station, for anyone who hasn't seen it, is a true story of a man named Oscar Grant who was tragically murdered on New Year's Eve at the BART station, the subway station in the Bay Area. Ryan had this incredible vision to actually shoot that climactic sequence in the actual Fruitvale BART station where it occurred, where everyone's initial response was, how would they ever allow that? But we tasked our location manager with finding out. And I remember the day he called me, I was driving in my car with Ryan, literally on the streets of Oakland trying to cast the movie. Because at one point we realized to cast them most authentically, we just have to find real people off the street. And he was like, hey guys, it's they're open to us filming, but they're going to need about $330,000 for it. Todd, our total budget at the time was like $700,000. We had allotted $10K per shoot day, which totaled $70,000. And we were like, man, that can't work. And we have to do something about this. And Ryan insisted, well, Sev, why don't you and the APs, you guys go into the BART meeting, you guys advocate for us. And, at the time in my student films and my Armenian movie, I was very used to like getting people to give us stuff for free and being respectful and doing right by people. And I remember there was an initial reluctance to that from our crew, which is like, oh, well, producers don't get involved with like location rentals. And we were like, that's all we know. So we started going to the BART conference rooms and advocating for ourselves and giving all the reasons why they should do it. And it was great. It was weeks and weeks of that. And we ultimately got them to sign off on it. And it was a really important lesson in my producing career of Ryan really having faith in me and us and validating that even though we don't have, at the time, years of experience making film after film, the experience we did have was validating. And at the end of the day, what is producing if not just making something that's supposed to be impossible possible.
And by the way, if you had years and years of experience, you might have just said, don't worry, we'll find something that looks like the BART station. We'll figure it out. It's not going to matter. We have bigger things to worry about. The fact that you didn't know what you didn't know allowed you to say, well, if creatively that's what Ryan needs, then I'm going to go make that happen, which is a good lesson to live by as a producer, no matter what, is not relying on what's been done before or what's the norm, but really listening to what your filmmaking partners need and delivering on that need. So when you said that Ryan, when he was making his student films, they were an event. What is it about him? What is it about Ryan that a lot of people, including yourself, have called him a once in a generation filmmaker? What when you were at USC and these things became events, what did you see? What is the special sauce in Ryan that makes him so incredibly astute at such a young age? As was said at the Critics' Choice, that it's insane that these guys are not even 40 yet. But what did you see early days that was like, whoa, this guy has something different?
Totally. And look, I can't take any credit for saying any of these things about him because I don't think I was unique in feeling this way. It was I think there's those two things about Ryan. One, it's who he is as a person, and then one, who he is as an artist and his work in particular. He's just the real deal. He's the whole package. He's a good, humble person who's honest and caring and empathetic and at the same time a savvy filmmaker who understands the business and the creative. I mean, he's all those things. Like Del, I agree with Del. It's unfair, but he's my friend, and I'm so proud of him. At USC, we would screen our student films, and everyone would go to all these screenings, and I genuinely remember where I was sitting on the floor of the Norris Auditorium because there wasn't seating room, and I watched one of Ryan Coogler's films called Fig. It was essentially his thesis film, and it was just masterful. I think Ryan's got this innate ability to capture truth in storytelling. Where you watch on the screen feels on one level unique and original and something you haven't quite experienced, but at the same time, it speaks to a relatability of the human condition. And I think that even is demonstrated in all of his movies, whether it's the franchise stuff or something original like Sinners. Whether you're reading it on the page or watching it, I feel like you're able to relate to it in so many ways. And his stuff is just entertaining. I'm never bored watching a Ryan Coogler movie ever. So all of those things and more is what makes him who he is. And I remember even when we were making Fruitvale, it was so hard, man. It was still to this day probably the hardest movie just because of how little we knew and the tiny budget and all the challenges against us. And I knew in my heart that, I can't say whether this film is going to be a success, Fruitvale Station, but I knew Ryan would be. There was no question to me that what he did every day on that set and after hours and in prep and all those things, that level of artistry he demonstrated, along with being such a good person, that was, I would tell my mom, like, oh, I don't know about the movie, it's not up to us, but he's gonna make it.
And why in those early days did he want to also produce? Why at that point didn't he, as a young filmmaker, say, I'm just going to find a producer that can help keep all this shit out of my inbox, and I'll just focus on directing? Why even that young? Because you said he understands the business very well. Why? Why did he want to become a producer and ultimately call you again after Black Panther and bring you back into the fold with Proximity? What is it about him that has that producerial mindset as well?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is Ryan did not get a producer credit on Fruitvale, nor did he get it on Creed or BP1. And it's funny because I'm going to answer your question kind of in the inverse. One of the most definitive moments I remember about the Fruitvale era and especially about Ryan as a person is when you get into Sundance, which of course is the biggest deal in the world for all of us. They invite the filmmakers, the directors, to come to the institute to record a video. It's like meet the director videos, and it's supposed to be like a 1-minute video. And I remember Ryan, who doesn't live in LA, I think I was driving him from one of our post-production labs to Sundance to shoot this video. And they have a camera set up, some lighting, And I just kind of sat in the back as they sat him down. They lit him, they mic'd him. And the guy who was directing these videos was saying, okay, so you're going to say, hi, my name is Ryan Coogler, and my movie is Fruitvale. And then you're going to say a few sentences about your movie. And this is like seared in my brain. Ryan sat down. They said, okay, action. And Ryan said, hi, my name is Ryan Coogler, and our movie is Fruitvale. And then the guy's like, oh, cut. He's like, oh, Ryan, sorry. You're supposed to say my movie is Fruitvale. And then Ryan was like, bet. And then roll camera, action. And Ryan said, hi, my name is Ryan Coogler, and our movie is Fruitvale. And I could see the guy just kind of like, what's going on? But he just went with it. And you could find this video on YouTube today, I'm sure. I think that speaks to Ryan's reverence for the collaboration of filmmaking. And whether that's applying to his producers or fellow producers in the case of Sinners, or everyone on the crew. I don't think Ryan is the kind of filmmaker who believes in that idea of like the singular auteur vision. And by the way, he has an incredible auteur vision. There's no question about it. But his process is always so deeply collaborative, and he's so respectful of it. He's all about sharing the credit and the spotlight, and even, just even another story about that era in Fruitvale, when we were having our incredible once in a lifetime bidding war off of that film Fruitvale at Sundance, Ryan insisted, like damn near fought to make sure I would be in that, quote unquote room as the deals were happening and as the meetings were happening. He is all about bringing in his collaborators in there and valuing everyone's opinions and taking all that into account. But as far as a company, I won't lie, even in those early days, there was talk about making a production company, about doing for others what had just happened for Ryan and for all of us. But we needed time. We wanted to spend a couple years figuring out the industry and doing more than just Fruitvale. Ryan went off to do Creed. He really fought to have me come onto that film as a producer of some sort, and they were not letting that happen for all the obvious reasons. It's a major franchise. It's a long-running movie. There's plenty of producers already. And I told Ryan, please, you don't need to do that. I wanted to go and produce a bunch of indies. I kind of wanted to build up my resume, my experiences. And Todd, there was a period of time from 2013 to like 2018 where I just did so many tiny micro-budget indie films. I would line produce them at times just because I wanted to get the feel of that. There were like faith-based movies, Chinese Mandarin language movies, mumblecore films all over the country. And I would land in a city and put together the crew and put together the film. And it was incredible. That was like my real boot camp, because everything that could possibly go wrong did on those movies, and I had to figure out how to fix them. And that really allowed me to meet a lot of agents and meet a lot of crew members around the country, and kind of got me ready for the time to finally be a lead producer of my own. And we would always kept in touch, and I would send him stuff and he would send me stuff. And I think it was Black Panther 1. I had come to watch a cut and give notes with Ryan and Zinzi and Michael Shaver, our editor, and a lot of the crew. And we just had a great time and, sharing thoughts, sharing notes. And we just, right after that, him and Zinzi called me and said, hey, Black Panther is about to come out. At the time, I had written and produced a movie called Searching that was about to premiere at Sundance. And he was like, let's do this for real now. We talked about it a long time ago. Let's make a company. And, that was that.
And it's called Proximity because you wanted to give artists the proximity to the business that you guys enjoyed at such an early age.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly part of it, man. I mean, the truth of it is our real initial idea was we wanted to make films for audiences to enjoy in proximity of one another. In other words, we were very much about the theatrical experience. We really believed in making films exclusively for theaters. Part of it is we wanted to make films that bring audiences in close proximity with often overlooked subjects. The idea of you watching our movies, you will be entertained because they're always event-driven and all that, but you might now have been exposed to the idea of plantation money. You might have been exposed to the idea of COINTELPRO or Chairman Fred Hampton. These are things that I think the specificity of that is what makes our films in success not feel generic, feel like an event, feel like something people can lean into in a way that will only help it commercially and critically in all the other ways.
You said that he has a singular auteur vision, but that he definitely brings people in and keeps people close, and he's super humble. What does a filmmaker like Ryan Coogler need from you as a producer? What do you bring to the filmmaking process with somebody who is so obviously hugely talented and theoretically could do it alone?
I think Ryan leans on myself and especially Zinzi Coogler, again, his wife, our producing partner, our fellow founder at Proximity. You know, Zinzi's his number one confidant. I think she's a secret weapon and secret success to everything he's ever directed. Going back to film school, we always joke that she probably should have paid tuition for USC because she was there with us or with him every step of the way. Bouncing ideas off of Zinzi, bouncing ideas off of me, reading his first drafts, giving him obviously tons of notes and helping to collaborate, helping to problem solve. But the truth is, Ryan is so all in as a filmmaker. He does not rest. I do think he's got a God-given talent. There's no question that in my mind. But he's also the hardest working person. The hours he puts in, like literally even back to Fruitvale, I remember like being in his parents' garage with him, like late at night, trying to keep our eyes open, trying to figure out how do we cut the script to shoot our shoot days and literally having to be on set in 3 hours. Like it's always been a grind, and Sinners is no exception, even though we all have kids and other responsibilities. It's too much for one person to do. But with Ryan, he really values everyone's contribution. And on top of that, we have to do a lot of delegation. What Ryan asks of his crew and his partners is a lot. His vision is a big one. And I don't mean that just in the 4-quadrant Marvel sense, but Sinners is such an operatic film, in my opinion, with so many moving pieces that needs a lot of boots on the ground to pull that off. You know, whether it's the logistics of hiring the right people and getting everyone coordinated, or coming up with the creative solves for certain story issues or production related scheduling issues or whatever that is. It's very much a tight-knit experience with everyone working together, but he needs us. And what I also love about Ryan, and I haven't worked with, 100 directors, so I don't know how different others can be, but we would have moments on the set of Sinners where Zinzi's by his side, the whole time, and I'm often either there with them or off putting out a fire, where Ryan would come and find me in the middle of me being on a crazy phone call, trying to like figure out something with a problem for tomorrow's shoot. And if Ryan's coming up to me in the middle of a shoot, I'm like, oh, is this something happening? And he's like, hey man, can you come by monitor? I want you to watch this. I want your notes on this. Hey, can you hang up that call? Please come tell me what you think about this take. What could be better? That's incredible. I think I've heard stories about filmmakers of Ryan's level who are more like, this is my time. Like this, I don't want producers or other collaborators around. That is not Ryan. And I can't stress enough. It's his movie. It's his ideas, and we all contribute, and he does as well. And he'll take notes, and sometimes we don't have time for them, but he really demands that collaboration of his partners.
And since you brought up Marvel, which is very collaborative because it's their IP and their movie, you've talked a bit in different places about learning so much from that organization and that process. And Marvel is a company that you guys have kind of looked at and based some of your company on. And you've talked about the lessons that Kevin taught you that were so invaluable. What were those lessons? What can you share from inside the walls of the great Marvel company?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no question that, I don't know the numbers, but Kevin's got to be like on paper at least the most quote unquote successful producer of all time, just with the box office and successes that they've had. With Kevin in particular, I remember, I think I worked probably closest with Kevin and Lou and Victoria at the time on our series Ironheart, the Disney Plus series, kind of a spinoff of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. And I remember story problems and, hey, what if we do X or what if we do Y? Oh, I know, we should definitely do Z. And we would, jump on a Zoom with Kevin because this was partially still during the pandemic. And he would just come onto a Zoom, hear everyone's pitches, and then very like collaboratively but calmly just pitch a totally different idea that no one was anticipating. And we thought we were already being outside the box, but he just thinks outside of the stadium. Like if you think about the ballpark, he's so smart when it comes to storytelling. He's so good at finding like the real heart of whatever the story idea that we're grappling with and pitching something that you just don't see coming. And I think a lot of the incredible movies that they made, and thinking back even to Captain America: Winter Soldier and what they do with the story and how he knows that you can just kind of take a story to a certain unexpected place. I remember that being a really eye-opening experience. And just the way they work as a company, Lou and again, Victoria at the time, always having the most amazing point of view when it comes to the creative and concept. And a lot of what they've done, we in the early days, we would talk about quite a bit because Ryan and Zinzi worked so intimately with them on Black Panther at the time.
Amazing. All right, so let's talk about Sinners. So first of all, thank you guys for doing that movie because it's been such a lightning rod in 2025 for the business. Obviously was a lightning rod for Mike and Pam, for Warner Brothers. Tell me about the earliest inception of the idea of Sinners, and then when you were made aware of it, and then how the business of it was decided upon in terms of like when you were going to take it out, how were you taking it out? How did that strategy come about? But before we get there, talk me through how did that idea come about?
Absolutely. So this is a Ryan original idea, original screenplay. I imagine it's probably been in his subconscious for years and years because Ryan has talked about it being very much a movie that's dedicated to the memory of his uncle James, who passed away, I think, around 2015 when Ryan was filming the first Creed movie. And that uncle of Ryan's, I believe is technically a great uncle, had a real love for blues music and was Ryan's introduction to that genre of music and shared stories at times about his upbringing. And ultimately, basically, after Ryan's life experiences, he was, I think, famously washing the dishes one day at his house, playing a blues music song, and the thought occurred to him. It's a song called Wang Dang Doodle about a group of colorful characters who like put together a party, and everyone's got like fun names. And Ryan thought about, how fun would it be to make a movie about people putting together a juke joint where you're kind of watching the crew get gathered, and then what's the most unexpected thing that could happen, which ended up being, of course, vampires show up.
That probably is the number one answer. It is very unexpected.
That is really funny, man. Oh man. And he would workshop it with Zinzi. I think if I remember correctly, Ryan said that like he pitched a version of it to Zinzi and she was like, nope, keep trying, and he came up with a more a better version. And then with myself, we were at Pixar Animation Studios. So Ryan and Zinzi live in the Bay Area, and every now and then I will fly up there to have kind of like a retreat, a leadership retreat for our company, Proximity Media. And it must have been like a December or January, like a year or so, a couple of years ago, where we were, having meetings, talking about our company and our TV business, our audio business. And I think in the parking lot, he and I were just walking, and Zinzi, and he's like, hey, here's a movie I'm thinking about maybe making one day. And he gave me like essentially just the log line of it. And he continued working on it. And I know for like well over a year, he was jotting ideas down. And I've seen his notebook. It's incredible. Like all the inspirations and some of those early ideas that he would just put on a paper and thinking about, how we can name the characters and who would the makeup of the crew be. And then there was a period of time where we were again having a dinner in LA at this point, talking about the upcoming year or two and how we want to kind of schedule our business. And he's like, I think I can go off and write that movie I've been working on. And he wrote it. And even while he was still working on the script, Zinzi and I started putting parts of it together. She would call all of our usual suspects, all of our incredible department heads who worked with Ryan for years, and got them ready. I went off and hired our line producer, Will Greenfield, started calling all the various states that we would want to potentially shoot in and try and take advantage of their incentives, and started putting this together while we brought on Francine Maisler, our casting director, to especially find our lead character of Sammy, who we knew would have to be a discovery. We needed a young man who had a voice far beyond his years, is how Ryan put it, who could play guitar, who could sing, who could act really good. And all of that started happening as the draft started coming in. The first time I read the script, it blew my effing mind. I love that script so much. I'm so happy that Ryan was recognized the other night at the CCAs for that script, because it is so not the classic structure of a script like that. It's a 3-act structure, but in a very interesting way. It's so unexpected what he does with the form. And I remember like the last few pages just destroyed me. And I, back to the Armenian stuff, like I really related to this script as an Armenian, which makes no sense because it's nothing to do with Armenians. It's about Black people in this era, in this part of history. But what Ryan does so well is that final speech by Stack, where he says, for a few hours we were free. It crushed me. And I remember when I called Ryan right away, we talked about just that for like 30 minutes and what I could bring to it from my own cultural point of view. And we started, we just kept going. And then at some point we started sharing the script with some of the various studio partners around town. and we had a bunch of meetings, and we had so many good meetings. There was a lot of great interest. But when we met with Mike and Pam and David and Jesse Ehrman at Warner Brothers, it just started feeling like that was the right fit, and we were also aligned. And I mean, you've had Mike and Pam on the podcast. Those guys are absolute champions of filmmaking, and they know. I think they know what they see, and they know how to support us. The fact that they're both producers or former producers certainly helps. And we were off to the races.
Was Michael B. always the person he had in mind when he wrote it? And was it always going to be a twin? How did that all come about?
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely. Michael B. was always in mind. And thankfully he said yes. And from the earliest inceptions, I think Ryan ultimately landed on the idea of twins. And, Ryan has a lot of twins in his family, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
And if you think about the duality of the movie, where with the idea of Sammy being kind of split between the church and the juke joint, and so much of the themes of the film were always kind of like two contrasting ideas, it just felt natural for it. And it also kind of made it feel like an event. And I don't know, we hadn't anticipated all these other movies with twins that have come out since, but it felt like, if you have a movie with two Michael B's, like what's better than one Michael B, two Michael B's? And it was certainly, those are thoughts that we had, although ultimately we ended up not leaning in that direction in the marketing, I think, in the right way, but it felt fun. It felt cool. It felt like a way to make it just a little bit more unexpected.
When Mike and Pam were on, we talked about a conversation that Mike and I had. I think it was about 4 days after he bought your movie. And we were having lunch, he and Pam and I, and he said to me, he goes, man, I just bought something that I'm so excited about. This is the kind of movie you put your career on. Turned out it was true. So you're making the movie, and I know Ryan would walk around the set and say, big movie, big movie, big movie, because that's the way his brain works, and he thinks about things in terms of entertainment and making it feel like a big movie and having it be important and not just be relegated to a genre movie. But when did you guys become aware of the noise that was starting surrounding your movie and the budget, and then the nonsense about, it's an expensive movie and the guns out for Mike and Pam?
There was an article that, I guess it was a leak of a sort, that we had made the deal, and there was a budget number in there, and there was deal points in the if I remember correctly, it was such a rush, but that was unfortunate, because not some of that stuff was just plain not accurate, honestly, which is, I think, really the case, and I know Mike and Pam spoke about that as well.
I mean, it rarely is. It's rarely accurate.
Yeah, and I don't know how that stuff happens, but I'm going to be dead honest with you, Todd. We were so locked into the making of this film, we had to shut that out. It helped that we were in New Orleans, a little bit removed from the town, and we just frankly didn't have time to, while we were prepping and shooting the movie, we certainly had no time to care or think about the noise. I mean that sincerely. It was a all-consuming project, this one. Then, while we were gearing up to market the movie, and maybe in the finishing stages of our post-production, some of those articles were coming out, a lot of which were aimed at Mike and Pam. And I really got to give crazy credit to Mike and Pam. Those guys are stone cold, because I remember we were in just one of our standard, marketing meetings where I think I was like, hey guys, there's all these weird, annoying articles coming out. We got to make a statement. We got to say something. This is not right. And Mike and Pam they were like, hey man, let them write it. It's we're doing, let our movies come out. They'll speak for themselves. And I remember just being blown away by that resolve and professionalism and just grit that they had. And it was kind of like they've been through this kind of stuff before. They're used to it. That doesn't bother them. And every time I see them, I was like, man, you guys, that was a major learning experience for me, because I've been fortunate to not have to be in that gauntlet the way that they have. And it has worked out. And not every movie that they greenlight or that any of us make will always be a hit or a success. But that's the job, as they always say. And for them, so many of these projects have done incredible this year. And we feel, Ryan Zinzi and I feel honored to be part of the Warner Brothers slate, and to be among these incredible films like One Battle and Weapons and Final. I mean, it's like they've had such an incredible run. And for us, even while we were getting ready to bring our movie out, in my mind, Ryan is a filmmaker who's made, I think, $2 billion off of 5 movies, if not which is just an insane statistic. It feels so unfair to write about a Ryan Coogler movie as a risk, even if it's not a franchise movie, even if it's a period movie, all those things. He and Mike together are just such gold, in my opinion. But on some level, like those articles that are always going to come, maybe almost helped because our audiences who saw the movie, I imagine, maybe felt ownership over the film and wanted to speak out in support of the film. And I think that encouraged more people to hear about it and maybe go see it, maybe more than once. So at the end of the day, we can't control what gets written about our films. But like Mike and Pam, we just have to make the movie and let that speak for itself.
Yeah, a couple of things about that. When those things were happening, we were in the process of previewing Mortal Kombat. So I was talking to all those guys and women quite a bit, and they were saying the same thing, man. Like, we've seen the movie. It does none of this matters. We've seen the movie. It's incredible. Everybody from the marketing department to Mike and Pam to everybody were saying the same thing. Like, we're not worried. This movie is incredible. But I also have to feel like, because you did say that, I mean, you're coming from a filmmaker that has such huge success, who is still getting press written about him that, oh, this could be a risk, and oh, this deal that, and this deal that, and then coupled with the fact that you said yourself, what's the most unexpected turn? Let's put vampires in there. So that also had a little bit to do with it, and its period, and but when you're in the middle of the marketing of this movie, and you guys knew what you had. What was the vibe from the inner circle of you guys? Did it fuel you? Did it fuel Michael? Did it make it feel like you? I mean, I would imagine coming from Fruitvale all the way to here, and being an immigrant, you probably always have this underdog kind of mentality driving you anyway. And we all do as filmmakers. But I would imagine, especially since coming from the independent world, what changed when all of a sudden the wave crested and all the press started picking up on it? Did it fuel you guys from the inside? And what pivots or changes did it make, or did you just keep your head down and keep doing what you normally would have done?
Man, such a great question. We definitely did not keep our heads down and only do what we've always been doing. And this is another major credit to Ryan when I talk about him being savvy. He really cares about the marketing of his films, and all of us come with ideas. We hired a woman named Tara Potts, who actually has a long experience working at Warner Brothers as a marketing executive. At my company Proximity, we brought her on at the time as a consultant, and we've since brought her full-time as our head of operations and marketing. We brought her on to kind of help be another advocate for our film on our behalf alongside the studio. And we really came prepared to every marketing meeting. We had ideas, we had pitches. We really asked a lot of the studio. We asked them to spend a lot of money in certain ways that, I think they would not have done had they not been on board with the ideas. And credit to them too. We had, Dana and Christian, we had this amazing marketing team, who brought amazing outside the box ideas, but ultimately we were very active in the marketing process. It was not us going to meetings and just listening and saying cool and moving on. It was a lot of pitches and trying to be really involved with any little thing we could do, whether it's like the Fortnite activation we had or Easter eggs that we did, or really pushing to have certain cast members be traveled to Mexico for something we did there. And I think the best example of it, of course, is that Kodak video that came out. That was an idea entirely originated by Ryan. And we were in the edit one late night talking about, if only people knew how much we put into this film, specifically with the film stock and the large format cameras. That's a big deal to have this in a movie, specifically this kind of movie. And Autumn literally did wizardry with how the movie looks. And Ryan very simply said, what if we just tell them? And he's like, yo, what if we just shoot this video and we, put together the shoot. Konstantin Nasir, who was our behind the scenes producer, brought his camera crew. We were already going to be at IMAX to do some QCs that day. And I remember personally roaming the halls to find a whiteboard so we can shoot this thing. We brought on a storyboard artist who then sketched out these frames. Zinzi wrote out on the whiteboards herself, literally the text and everything. We did maybe 2 takes. We brought our post supervisor to help advise to make sure we were saying all the right stuff. And Ryan was just himself for 5-10 minutes and talked about his passion for filmmaking. And I think that video served a real purpose in that it was legitimately educational. Like you can watch that and walk away having known things. And it really gave audiences that extra excuse you kind of need to get the babysitter, to, you know, to pay for parking, to show up at a theater and know that this is something that maybe you don't want to wait to watch on streaming. You kind of want to be there to see it. That video hitting the interwebs, that felt like the biggest spark. I also want to give a shout out to Spike Lee. I think that same day was when we did that QC where Spike came to watch the movie, and he, you know, did this incredible Instagram post where he was just raving about the movie. I think that kind of kicked off a little bit of a snowball chain reaction as well. When people would start seeing it, they would talk about it. So it wasn't like this. I don't think the movie had the kind of tracking that like a Marvel movie might have, where people are waiting for it a year out. But once those little things started coming out, it did feel like that snowball effect. And our opening weekend was amazing, and the numbers held strong every single day. And you would see people seeing the movie 5, 6, 7, 20 times. And we just, you know, at proximity in the studio, we would try and feed that fire. We would always feed that fire. We would always engage and give people more opportunities to want to see it even more and more.
Couple things about that video. One is it harkens back to when you were making your videos and putting them on YouTube. It just doing it yourself. There's nothing like it. Taking your creative instincts into your own hands and delivering. So kudos to you back then as well. But number two, it really also just showed how much he gave a shit and how much he loved cinema and how much he loved this movie and how much care he took. And when you see that, it just inspired. It really affected me emotionally, and just how, because I can remember there was like when Ghostbusters came out, I just poured over those visual effects and every book that was written about them and how they did it, and just couldn't get enough of every frame of how they did that movie, because I was just so inspired by a visual effects movie that used visual effects in such a profound character way. And it reminded me of that when I was listening to Ryan talk about the different formats. It reminded me of just that passion that we have for our craft. And when you really look under the hood and you get so geeked out about this stuff, there's a lot of people out there like us too that just feel inspired by that kind of love and passion. So it really was such an incredible idea, and kudos to Ryan for coming up and delivering on it. In terms of just the insane hold, when did you guys exhale? When did you feel like you had turned the corner and you're like, okay, we're good? Would you remember a specific moment? Did you guys all celebrate some milestone? Was there any sort of like acknowledgement, like we did it? Was it the opening weekend? When was it?
Oh man, I wish I had an answer for you. Oh man, did we ever have a moment of just celebration?
If not, you should go to the Bay Area right now and have it, because
like the sad truth is, man, like we are genuinely workaholics, and the work doesn't stop, and we have other projects that are just as important, that are obviously in different stages. And you know, and feels like such a privilege to say it, but it still feels like we're working on Sinners, just with all of this incredible positive reception we've had with the award stuff. So I'm not sure if we have, man, but like, you know, we have moments where we appreciate, and, you know, it's special, man. Like there's like, I think about Cinespia. We had this incredible screening at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery that I want to cry thinking about, seeing people in the costumes. Halloween, of course, seeing people with their own costumes. And these are the moments you just stop and appreciate it for sure. And we've had, what's been lovely about this awards stuff is just being able to see everyone again, and people are, you know, still valuing the time we had together and appreciating it even more and more. Serena and Ludwig, who did such an incredible job with the music, that the soundtrack has had taken on its life of its own. So it still feels like we're in it. So, but I appreciate that, Todd. I'm gonna take that and make sure we celebrate even more, because you're right.
Yeah, you guys got to celebrate your wins. You can be workaholics, but this business will, as somebody who's been doing this for a lot longer than you, this business will eat you up, and mostly eat you up. So when you have those moments, especially with such good friends that you've had for such a long time, there's so much love there, you can feel that. Make sure that you guys celebrate each other. I know you guys, there's not enough positive stuff that can be written about Sinners, but there's nothing like three friends from, you know, college days really honoring each other. You guys have accomplished something really, really incredible. And again, I'm so grateful to you guys, because It was an original movie. It's obviously there's so many box office records that it's broken, but to bet on yourselves and to really bring something so original is so incredible and inspiring and needed in this business, because Ryan could have easily had a career where he did. He was in the Marvel universe making tons and tons of money and using his talents to continue putting out great product that's IP based. And instead he did something wholly original. And it's very, 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 very inspiring. And I think the most important question I have for you is, does the key to Warner Brothers open anything? Because you you were given the key to Warner Brothers. So what the hell does that key open? Does it open the front gate? What can you use the key to Warner Brothers to
Oh man,
open?
that's so. I'm not sure just yet, but I'm gonna certainly be using it any chance I can at that amazing studio. To me, that key was just so symbolic of the incredibly positive relationship we have with everyone at the studio, and it's not just Mike and Pam, although of course them as well, but some of the the post production executives, some of them are physical production executives who, bless them, they would come to set to help us out and ultimately really gave us so much trust. So, when we would tell them, we're having lightning strikes, we have to like push tomorrow's schedule and we got to reshoot this and we got to do this. Like at the end of the day, the studio genuinely gave us the freedom to take some real risks with this movie. And as a studio, they were so champions of this film when maybe on paper they had a lot of reasons not to be. They really, really were. And they were extremely hands-on when we needed them and really gave us a space when that's what the movie needed. So to us, that key really meant just that relationship was so meaningful to them as it was to us. So man, that was honestly a wonderful night too. Thank you.
Fantastic. Uh, it's like, it's you guys and Greta Gerwig. Then I'm going to ask Greta the same thing. Like, what have you guys tried to open some doors? Like, what's happening? Does Margot out there? And do you guys now have like little meetings of just the two people who have the keys to Warner Brothers? Because you're the only living people who have them.
I'm going to try and use that key to get into the premiere of Mortal Kombat 2. Let me try that.
Oh, there you go. Trust me, you don't need that. I've got your back on that one. Congratulations, by the way, on the Armenian Film Hall of Fame. What an incredible honor. Well deserved. And I've read a few things in the Armenian press. And you're very gracious to help people and talk about advice for young filmmakers come up. And that's very important to me because a lot of young people do listen to this, and I hope to give them hope and inspire them. If you could walk me through a little bit of that advice that you give to young filmmakers, because I think it's also really smart. It reminds me of Good Will Hunting when he says, he wasted $150,000 on a career at Harvard when you could have gone for $5 of late fees. So I know that that's part of your advice. What advice can you give young filmmakers, especially filmmakers that don't know what they want to do? They, like you were a screenwriter who maybe wanted to be a director and then ultimately found that producing was the thing that fit your skill set best. What advice would you give young people that want to be in our business?
Man, to me, it's like threefold. One of which you really talked about earlier on, but the first one, as you mentioned, it's self-education. You have to differentiate yourself from the thousands or tens of thousands of other aspirational filmmakers. How do you set yourself apart? And the easiest way is to just gain knowledge. So whether it is paying for a school like USC and being $100,000+ of debt, or what I like to really recommend is like just buying or checking out every book on the topic. And I have a bit of this obsessive personality where I have read every book on film finance and film history and production and script development. I've read them all because I just wanted to have that leg up versus other people who may not have done that. That is so important. There's a lot of resources on YouTube. I want to shout out David F. Sandberg, who's a filmmaker who's got this incredible YouTube channel. I think it's at Pony Smasher. He's the filmmaker who did movies like Lights Out, and the Shazam movies, where he had short films that he made with his wife for $5 and then made behind the scenes videos of those shorts that I think are just so incredibly educational. Number two is to network, but I don't believe in the idea of like you said earlier, meeting with Brian Lord, because that's not going to benefit you. And I think a lot of people waste maybe a lot of time trying to network that way, of trying to land meetings with quote unquote important people or big directors or producers or execs. You're much better served, I think, networking laterally, finding your peers in whatever you're looking to do. And there's so many resources to find people like that. In LA, there's a website called Mandy.com where you can use it to get crewed up on short films and student films. And I used to do this even when I was a student, just work on someone's crew for free for a day, especially if you can afford it at the time, and meet people and get a sense of what you want to do and get better at it. That's how I met Ryan. That's how I met Anish. That's how I met Natalie. It's just finding your collaborators in that way, and you build together over time. And then lastly is to capitalize. And obviously, it would be nice if you were born rich or born in a Nepo baby type of way. But for the rest of us, you still have resources you may not realize. That if you want to make a film or a short film, you have that aunt or uncle or that interesting friend or some unfair advantage. I bet you have it, and lean on that and write towards that and develop towards that. Those three things, self-education, networking laterally, and capitalizing on what you have, that's the great way to just get started, and then just give it time. And I really, maybe it's optimistic of me, but I do feel like over time that talent will rise. And if you work your butt off, you will eventually get to that place where people will start seeking you out. And that idea of like, it's not who you know, I think it's really who knows you. And the more you put work out there, I think you'll find more opportunities come your way as well.
Great advice. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for doing this and taking the time out of your insane schedule of taking, hopefully, the accolades for Sinners that are so well-deserved. And then lastly, I always like to ask my guests, and you can't use being held at gunpoint with your sister, best memory on set.
I'm going to try and talk about one maybe I haven't talked, because there's a lot on Sinners. The surreal montage, the wonder, the vampire dance sequence, of course. Those are all such great memories. But when I was in my indie producer days, I quit producing a lot. Almost every indie film while we were in prep, I was like, okay, this is my last movie. I don't think I can keep doing this. It's so hard. You know this, Todd. And I remember I would even tell people, whether it was my friends who were not in the industry, or I'd even call my lawyer being like, hey, this is just FYI, this is my last movie. I'm going to get into something else after this. And every time without fail, when I would get to the first day of filmmaking, where you see on the monitor the first shot, and the actors get into character after, role in action, I was like, damn, I think I'm going to do one more movie. That happened for a lot of time. And now it stopped happening. I stopped lying to myself. But I remember my film Searching. It's a movie that I co-wrote with Anish. It's the first movie that I was the lead producer on. We made this movie for under $1 million. It made $75 million in theaters alone and launched a sequel or two. The first day of filming that movie, which the movie takes place on computer screens. We were shooting on iPhones. It's very indie. I remember just being filled with so much gratitude that I got to be able to do this for a living. And I was on the set of a film that was so small and so filled with a lot of hopeful dreamer types that everyone was kind of giving a gamble with this one. And we had John Cho on set, who's such an incredible actor and underrated in so many ways, playing this character, and we were shooting on a freaking iPhone. And I just thought to myself, man, I want to do this for the rest of my life. And that's when I stopped quitting every movie. So I'll give it to that one.
Amazing. Well, thank you, brother. Good luck in the awards season. Like I said, I love the movie. I love what you're doing. And thank you for being such a great member of Producers United and being such a great example of what a real producer and a great producer does. So thank you, brother.
Thank you, Todd. Thanks for everything, man.
Thanks for tuning in for this episode of The Producer's Guide. If you're a fan of this podcast, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends and family. And if you got any questions about producing, send me a DM on X at Todd_Garner. I want to thank my producer, Steve Delamater. And until next week, I'm Todd Garner. See you then.